Alex? Yeah, come on up. You're not shy.
No, I'm fine.
All right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Califord. I am in Los Angeles County, California.
Hi, Alex.
Hello. So it's really one sentence, and it's very simple, and it is, I will own enough rental properties generating cash flow that I don't have to work because I have to. That's my goal.
That's a great goal. I love it. And you're on your way. And how long have I known? I've known you for what, maybe 3 years?
About 2.5.
2.5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy has come a long way. Especially, I mean, Kevin Ward is and working with you. I remember the first time I met you there, where you were and where you are now. You've come a long way, so good for you.
It's been a tough journey,
But you're doing the work,
Yes,
so good for
thank
you. Great stuff. Thanks, Alex. Anybody else want to share? So none of you put on your list of things you want to be doing in 10 years is public speaking, clearly, right? You in front of the room? Okay, well, I'm not going to make you guys share if you don't want. And no one? All right. So yeah, so the real key, though, is that this stuff is all possible. I didn't really have, when I first started, like I said, my goal was I was going to hold on to my one property for, 25 years. It was going to get paid off, and it was going to be my retirement, and that was my, my only goal with that property. It wasn't to go build this big portfolio or do any of this teaching. You just never know where you're going to end up when you start taking action and you put momentum to the things that you should be doing, and just making a habit of doing things properly. So I see so many people along the way, and Alex is one of them. I just see a lot of people, and they start putting stuff into action. They keep educating themselves and just showing up, and you just never know where you're going to end up. But it's just awesome. So good to see, and it's good to see a lot of familiar faces here, by the way. So one of the things I want to do is I want to clear up some of the misconceptions about real estate investing, because I see, so much crap out there, and there's a whole lot of companies that go around putting on seminars, and I don't like to really diss other people in the industry, but I do sit in on a lot of them, and I've spoken for other companies that I don't speak for anymore for a good reason. But a lot of times they try to sell people on this dream, and the dream that you have in front of you is doable. Everything, whatever you put there for 10 years, the reason I gave you 10 years, I didn't say, hey, where do you want to be next month after we finish this course? Because it's just a bunch of BS. It's not going to happen. It's like I said, it's planting seeds, and the seeds take time to grow into trees. But if you do the right things, there's different ways that you can make that tree grow faster, but it's not going to be a tree, this big, massive tree tomorrow, and you're not going to have a forest tomorrow of trees. So, but there's a lot of these companies that go around selling people on this dream, and they make it sound like you're going to get rich quick, and then it makes it really easy for them to sell you a $30,000, $40,000 coaching package, which, by the way, I'm not going to offer you at this event. But there's a lot of that, and so real estate is, to me, it's long-term growth. And you see a lot of these shows on TV, flipping Vegas and flipping this and flipping that. And absolutely, you can flip properties. I have flipped properties. I have friends that flip properties. But flipping properties is a job, and it's a lot of work. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I know I have a really good friend of mine who's been flipping properties for 15 years. But when I go visit him, and I hang out with him, he's running around, he is zipping all over town, and he's getting stuff signed, and he's watching his crews and making sure everybody's doing their stuff. I don't really want to, I know how to do it. I know how I can teach you guys how to flip homes. I don't want to teach you guys how to flip homes, because to me, I want to teach you guys how to have this life. Hey, Lisa, how you doing? Welcome. So I want to teach you how to have a life, and something that's happy for you, and where it's not consuming your entire existence. So I have another friend who does buy and hold properties, and I met her not too long ago. I was up in Calgary, where she lives. We've both been doing real estate for a long, long time. She owns a bunch of properties, but she's doing everything by herself. She collects the rent, and she's getting phone calls from tenants at 2 a.m. And we were at a Starbucks, and she said, Mike, you know what, right now, if I could just magically, wave my magic wand, I get rid of all my properties. I'd rather be the barista behind the counter at the Starbucks. And I'm going, yeah, I'm going, this stuff can be all, way too consuming, and it can take up your entire life, and I don't want to teach you how to do that. I want to teach you how to have a life that you love and have that freedom. I'm sure nobody put on their 10-year plan that you want to be working more hours and have less time, more time away from your family, and you don't want to have time to travel and give back. Nobody put that on their list, right? So I want to teach you guys how you can actually attain the things that you put on that list. So one of the misconceptions, like I said, is that the best way to make money in real estate is flipping homes. And like I said, flipping homes, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's creating a job for yourself. And if that's a job that you want to do, I have other courses where I can absolutely show you how to do that safely. But I think that even though everybody in theory wants to do real estate, I think 3% should be what I call entrepreneurial investors, meaning going out there and doing what I did and going get your hands dirty and finding deals and knocking on doors and doing the cold calls and setting up teams. Maybe 2 to 3% of the population should be doing that. The vast majority of people should be hands off. Everybody's showing real estate, but most people should be hands off with it, unless it's your passion. As soon as you hit that first dead end, that first brick wall, most people will give up doing what I did when I was younger. I had no choice because I became fully committed. That story I told you earlier, after I got that first success in real estate, I quit the phone company, so I didn't have that avenue. I already told my parents I wasn't going to law school, so I didn't have that. So I had no choice but to make it work. Otherwise, I probably would have given up at some point, especially after that first disaster I had. So I'm going to teach you guys how to not have those disasters, how to make this so that it doesn't consume your entire existence, and where you actually can have a life that you love. So one of the misconceptions, one of the things that when I first started, I bought my very first revenue property. It was very close to where I lived. And I thought, well, it's going to be really convenient. Wouldn't it be great? I don't have to go very far to collect the rent. And if a tenant calls with a problem, I can, it's only 5 minutes away. That is a really bad way to do real estate. Don't ever invest in anything because it's convenient. Invest in things because it makes sense, because it's a good business decision. Because those dreams that you wrote down are not going to happen if you're doing things that are only convenient for you. So that was one of the biggest mistakes I hear people make. Is they say, I hear it all the time. People saying, "Oh, we should invest close to home." Well, if you were to think that Apple is going to be the most successwould company, you don't have to live next door to Apple to invest in it. Well, same with real estate. If you have the right teams, you don't have to invest close to home. Matter of fact, the further away from home it is, in some cases that's actually better. And the reason for that is human beings, we're emotional creatures. And if we drive past our home every day and we see, oh, the tenant doesn't have their garbage can exactly where I want it, well, now it's bugging you all day long. If, people get really, really involved and emotional in what they do. It's a lot better to buy something on business sense, have other people dealing with whatever issues come up, and being far away from that, removed from it, so you're doing the things that you love. So while we're here, I have people on my team doing a lot of different things for me that make what I do, that make my lifestyle possible. So leverage other people's time, other people's systems. Don't be trying to be, don't turn this into a full-time job for yourself. Unless that's your passion. You say, hey, Mike, I absolutely, I want to go door knocking, and I want to go put up those yellow bandit signs saying I buy homes, and I want to go be on the phone all day long. If that's what you want to do, absolutely. I can show you how to do that. I'm not going to show you that in the next 2 days, but I can show you that. But I don't think most people want that. Or even if they think they want it, after they start doing it, they realize it's a lot of work. So I look at real estate as, and I hate to use this analogy, but I see it as a slot machine. The reason I don't like to use the analogy is, to me, real estate is not gambling if you do it right. But I am very unartistic, by the way, but this is supposed to be a house. Very ugly one. I wouldn't buy it. So the beauty of having this revenue property here, even though it's not a pretty one, the benefit of it, as I mentioned, if we were to compare it to a slot machine, this is like a rigged slot machine. Imagine you went to a casino and you knew that there was one slot machine in the casino that paid out guaranteed every single month. So it wasn't designed to take your money. So every single month you have dollar signs coming out here, and this is from your rent. So if you know that this slot machine is going to pay out every single month and you have some cash flow guaranteed, if you knew this was guaranteed pretty much, then this makes your investment sustainable. Now, if you own a stock and it goes down, there's nothing you can do about it. If you own gold and the price of gold goes down, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not going to spit out money anyways, as I mentioned earlier, unless you sell it. But the really cool thing is that you ever go in those casinos and they have the mega bucks thing where the grand prize is like, X number of $1 million. So as long as we know this is coming out, and we know that this will eventually pay, we never know when this is going to pay. This is your appreciation. When the home goes up in value, how many of you are in a market where you wish when you first, when you were younger, you bought a whole bunch of properties in that market when you were a kid? Because they're worth a whole lot more now. Can you imagine where you'd be? So if I had I hear so many people say, "Oh, I wish I would have bought back." And I started my first real estate deal was like late '80s, early '90s. I wish I would have bought 1,000 properties back then. Fact of the matter is, I didn't have the money. But if I could have bought them and sustained them by having money come in every month, if I knew I could sustain that investment, and it's just a matter of time till that jackpot hits, till that money comes out. And like I said, this is your appreciation. So the biggest problem people have is that they don't have a strategy, and a lot of people don't get this. They end up they end up speculating in real estate. I'm going to teach you guys why that's so dangerous. So how many of you during the boom times, maybe you did it yourself, or at least how many know somebody that just before the recession kicked in, they knew somebody who bought a bunch of properties, and these people thought they had hit the jackpot, right? So these people were paying big dollars for these homes. They were buying just before the recession came in, and they were thinking that market was going to go up forever. And people like myself know that real estate is very cyclical, and that basically the real estate, when you buy it, if you buy it at too high a price and you buy it at the wrong time in the market, and you don't have the sustainability factor, you're going to be in big trouble. So I want to make sure every property I buy has to give me cash flow. When I have cash flow, it doesn't really matter if the market goes down. So a lot of people say, Mike, you must have got smoked on when the recession kicked in. Well, if we go back to when the recession started, I was very heavily invested in Las Vegas at that time. And Las Vegas, for those of you who don't know, so the biggest misconception is really that you have to invest close to home. So people often say, well, if I'm not investing close to home, what does that look like? How do I even know what market to invest in? Well, it's not a coincidence I brought you guys to Atlanta. So when you're picking a market, there's three main things that you want to look at, and they're not. Most people, when they call me and if they don't know anything about real estate, the first thing they'll ask me is, what's the return on investment? How much is it going to make? So I want to talk to you about the things you need to look at before you even consider that. Before you even look at what's the purchase price, what's the rent going to look like. These are the things you need to look at first. So number one is it landlord friendly? And I have horrible writing, so I am going to apologize. If you can't read anything, I'll try to decipher it for you. So how many people are from California here? So California is one of the most unfriendly places to be a homeowner. As you know, to get rid of a bad tenant, if they know how to work the system, and by the way, bad tenants always know how to work the system. There's people who are professional tenants. It can take over a year to get rid of a bad tenant. So if you're buying close to home and you live in California because it's convenient, imagine you have a property where you've got a mortgage payment every month, and you've got utility bills, and you've got insurance, you got these property taxes. That doesn't stop if your tenant stops paying you. So imagine you have no revenue coming in. And has anybody ever once, I've never once had this happen to me in 27 years of investing, I've never once had a bank call me up and say, hey, Mike, I hear your tenant didn't pay you. We feel really bad for you. You don't have to make your mortgage payment. Don't worry about it. Just pay us when you got the money. I've never once had that. Has anybody had that? Right. So your bills are going to keep coming in whether your tenant's paying you or not. So if that's not at the top of your list as to where you want to invest, you're in big trouble. How many people in California have known somebody who has had a bad tenant that they couldn't get rid of, or maybe had one yourself, right? So a place like Atlanta, and you're going to meet my property manager here, Anthony, later today on the bus. And actually, I should tell you what we're doing. So we're going to have a lunch break from 12-ish to 1, and then we're going to hop on a bus, and I'm going to actually pull back the curtain and show you behind the scenes. We're going to look at a bunch of homes. You're going to meet Anthony, my property manager, and we're going to go explore the suburbs of Atlanta today. So, and then tomorrow we're going to spend lots of time on a bus. So you're not going to have to listen to me lecture the whole time. I will be blabbing on the bus, and you probably won't listen to me, but that's all good. You'll be singing. I'll be singing on the bus too. Robert, by the way, in the back. Let's give Robert a big round of applause. He's our AV man. I met Robert last year. We did a tour in Costa Rica where it's called Live Your List, and we got to spend some time traveling around, having fun. I got the opportunity to teach a bunch of entrepreneurs, and we got to do some give back stuff. We spent some time at an orphanage, and Robert actually organizes all that stuff, and he's doing another one this year in 2017 in New Zealand, which I'm going to be at. And you guys are all, if that's something you're interested in, go talk to Robert. But it's phenomenal. But anyway, so now he's helping me with some of my marketing and helping me do all the technical stuff that I don't have a clue how that works. So he's at the back of the room, and he'll be on the bus with us too. So if you have any questions for him, he's a really good resource. So anyway, now I'm totally off track. Yes, where was I? So yeah, we're going to be on a bus this afternoon. You're going to meet Anthony, the property manager. And the reason I was telling you about Anthony is that if we get a bad tenant in Georgia, usually 3 to 4 weeks we can get rid of them. And so now by the time you have your next mortgage payment, we could potentially have another tenant lined up for you. So that's the number one thing I look at. Number two is what's going on with population and job creation. Now, why that's important is, remember our little slot machine that we have here? When you have number 2 in place, this is what gives you that jackpot. If you go to a place that doesn't have, if the population is shrinking, if you look at a place like, I'm going to pick on Detroit. I like to pick on Detroit because I actually invested there. I had 3 properties. It was a nightmare. I would not recommend that. Anyway, the jackpot is from basically upward pressure on the real estate market. And how you get upward pressure is if you have a bunch of people moving to a place, and usually there's a number of reasons why people will move to a place, but that's going to basically put pressure, and it's going to change the supply-demand curve. Now you have a whole lot more people wanting, if the number of properties stays the same, and you have a whole bunch more people moving in, that's going to drive up both rents, and it's going to drive up the real estate prices. So usually what will bring people to move to a different place is job creation. So when we look at job creation, though, not all jobs are created equal. And what I mean by that is if you're in a one-industry town, like Calgary, where I'm from, is mostly oil. Right now there's tons of layoffs. I can tell you prices are not going up at all. That jackpot is getting further and further away for most people. And that's because there's not a lot of diversity. If you look at a place like Detroit, auto industry, obviously they're struggling now, and it's going to get worse because what's the future of cars? Does anybody know? What's happening? Self-driving cars, right? So who are the big players? It's not Ford, GM, and Chrysler. The big players are Google, Uber, and Apple, amongst other tech companies. It's not the automotive companies. So if these automotive companies aren't proactive in teaming up with some of these tech companies, they're done. They're not going to be in business. So we want to have diverse jobs. The reason I love Atlanta, the reason why we're here doing this course is because Atlanta is head office to Coca-Cola, Turner Broadcasting, which owns CNN and a bunch of other networks, Delta Airlines, Home Depot, Georgia Pacific Paper. The list goes on and on and on of all these Fortune 500 companies. And the reason why they're here is because the government is very business friendly. So for the same reason that they're landlord friendly, because they see us entrepreneurs as basically people that they encourage entrepreneurship, they're also encouraging these big companies to move their offices here by giving them tax breaks. So what does that do? This is eventually going to lead to the jump in prices. So this is the number 2 thing I look at. If I don't have that jackpot, I can still get potentially cash flow. But if I'm buying in the wrong market, sometimes that cash flow is not going to come in. If you have high unemployment, that tenant who was really good when they moved in because they had a good, solid job, all of a sudden they can't pay you anymore. So you want to have this. And the number 3 thing is ROI. And that's usually what people go to first. They ignore this. And the ROI, if you don't pay attention to this, and this becomes what I call paper returns. And what a paper return is something that looks really good on paper. I could send you a sheet saying you're going to pay only this much for the property, you're going to get all this big rent. Well, if your tenant's not paying you, it doesn't really matter how much potential rent you could have got, you're not going to see it. And if you don't have this, if you're in a market, you can keep your tenant, but it never goes up. It doesn't allow you to expand your portfolio. So here's how you get wealthy in real estate. I'm going to sum it up really quickly here. If you go back to this slot machine, it's by having a whole bunch of these slot machines that pay out every single month. When you have a bunch of these that spit out money at the end of the month, then you're laughing. But for most people, what that means, if you buy in the wrong market, what that means is that you're always going to be going to a job. If you don't hit this jackpot, the jackpot will allow you to buy more properties without going to a job, without having to save more money. You want this one house to multiply and help you buy a second house. And then you want your 2 homes you want that to turn into 4 homes. You want the 4 to turn into 8. If you live in a place where the prices never go up, you're still going to get that rent. You'll have cash flow for what you bought, but it's not going to scale. You're not going to get to this point where you're going to get all that freedom that you want. So I'm going to teach you much more about that as we go. But if you don't focus on these 2 things, you go straight to this, that's what that leads to. It leads to problems. So this is basically safety. This is growth and appreciation. and scalability. And this over here is your cash flow, which allows you to sustain your investment. Because as soon as you lose this part, if you don't have that money coming in every month, well now, if your goal is to have freedom, if you put on your list that you want to have more time to travel or more time, if you want to have your time back to do whatever it is that you enjoy, if you lose this, then you don't have that anymore. Or if you're supporting this, if you have to pay for your property, I'll get to you in 1 sec. If you have to pay for your property at the end of each month, now you're actually working more hours instead of less. So it does the opposite. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Did you lose some rent with Las Vegas when it hit it, when they went down?
Yeah, so his question was, I don't know if you guys can hear him or not in the back, but his question was, did I lose rent when things went down? Actually, when the recession kicked in, it was actually really good because, in a way for me, in that we had a whole bunch more people going from ownership to rentals. And so we could pick and choose who we wanted. The really good thing, there were not everybody who lost their home, not everybody who lost it was because they couldn't afford it. A lot of people, for example, I remember I bought one property, and the next door neighbor comes up to me and goes, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what did you pay for that property? I can't remember what the number was, but I basically told him, and he goes, oh, really? And his mortgage was more than twice what I had paid for the property. He could afford his mortgage payment, but he said, I'll just go buy it. A lot of people went and bought